Hi, so first, welcome to our talk. I'm Pete Seager, head of CG, and with me is Paul Baaske, head of technology. We're two of the co-founders of JFX, and today we want to tell our story about how we went from nothing to building a studio that has delivered 790 shots in just a year.
And all of you, I mean, this is a very nice and intimate setting. We're here now, everyone. Thank you for being here instead of being for lunch and out there in the sun. Yeah, JFX really is the restarting of Jellyfish, which we were part of the journey until it all crashed. So the two of us are here today to share a little bit of what happened, and more importantly, how we restarted from the ashes in a way, and how in a time when I think every one of us is worried a bit like what the industry looks like, what a new setup could be like. So yeah, I'm Paul. I'm head of technology now at JFX. I have had the pleasure and privilege to be part of several companies and helping them grow from dozens to hundreds. So I've seen a few different studios, and this was a particularly fun challenge because we didn't go from 50 to 500 like a DNEG or a Jellyfish before. We really went from 0 to 1. So we quickly talked to you about the roots, how we started fresh, what the problem was in a way, how we then really sat there in this darkness of March 2025, what we thought the new way of setting up a studio should be, and then how we did it, and talk a bit about, I think, hopefully quite candidly and honestly about what that journey was. So share with you the journey of what we learned, and maybe apply some of these onwards. So starting with the roots, many of you might know that, but Jellyfish was a highly established award-winning studio with 25 years of history. We were at peak 650 people, which is hard to believe. So I joined them about 5 years ago. They were 50. They just had finished the first feature film, Spirit, which they magically, with sheer passion and sweat, got through a Maya shot grid pipeline. And they were looking ahead at a slate of saying, like, we want to do multiple feature animation films, we want to do episodic TV, we want to do VFX. So there was this mandate to grow. And as it was at that time, all the stars aligned and projects were coming in, we're busier than ever, and it was very well set up at the time to grow, and at some point the Global VFX Atlas called it the fastest growing studio of the decade. So we were part of that journey of going from 50 to 650, going from one base in London to having offices in Toronto and Mumbai, really having people employed anywhere and everywhere. And yeah, suddenly it's March 2025 and everyone is redundant. So that was maybe a bit of the anticlimax that we faced. So as we I think get the email, there's some podcasts out there from Amber, head of production. It wasn't completely unexpected, but it also was, at the time, we all were waiting for investment. I mean, cash is always obviously a huge part, without getting too much into the details of what exactly happened. The stars didn't quite align after COVID, after writer strikes, and maybe a very rapid scale to keep the momentum going. And when an investment didn't come through in the end, the whole thing folded literally from Friday to Monday. So we were all there walking our dogs. We were at home. We were like, okay, I think we can do this. We just got paid the week before, and then on Monday we get the phone call and go, look, it's done. And yeah, obviously quite a tragic moment, really. We were not 650 at the time anymore, but yeah, I was going back in the office as the head of tech, like literally seeing how the people were coming in, taking monitors and screens out of the office, and I was still delivering some of the last show and the last shots, and I saw like the drive letters disappearing as they were unplugging the servers, and it's like, no, I still need to get code through, and it's like, so we had to write some quick code because the drive that had the letters from where our code repositories were stored were being unplugged. So I just basically quickly had to write some delivery script in the last minute. But so we all go home in this moment of darkness. Really, it was quite dark still, March 25.
Yeah, it felt quite a low point. Like, it was only 2 weeks before Technicolor had kind of gone out of business as well. We all had kind of friends, and I'm sure many people in this room have got friends who've been out of work for nearly multiple years. I think it's not, it's the worst I've seen the industry at that point in nearly 20 years of doing this. So we're kind of looking at this void of kind of what to do. We had support from kind of many of our clients. We had work that we were about to start, some work that was was already kind of underway. And yeah, so we had the support of the clients. We had no infrastructure, obviously no capital. That's not really the best point to be starting a new business. But it threw us into a bit of an unexpected situation with very little notice. But often from adversity comes opportunity. And yeah, we had this opportunity with a company called Troubadour off the back of this. And so it's quite a long story as to how this kind of happened, so I'll try and condense it into a shorter, more interesting version. But one of our clients, so Troubadour own film studios, they own theatres, but one of our clients at the time was filming in one of their film studios at Brent Cross. Struck up a conversation with their head of studio, Vince Woods, and was basically, the VFX company that I always go to, they'd gone out of business. I'm not really I'm not sure what I'm going to do. And Vince was kind of like, oh, hang on, we might be thinking about getting into that space. So kind of very quickly, conversations kind of happened. Phil Dobry, who was the original founder of Jellyfish, kind of helped facilitate this opportunity and kind of suggested to them, if you guys want to build a VFX company, this is what it would take. And yeah, it took 6 of us from the VFX leadership team that they took on. And yeah, and that's kind of how we started. Just quickly about Troubadour though, to give a little bit more info about them. Yeah, they own film studios. They have in London, they've got 2 theatres at the moment, one at Wembley Park that had Starlight Express. I think everyone knows that. And then they're also doing the Hunger Games, the live show at their Canary Wharf Theatre, which they built in the middle of, when we started with them, their main problem was a massive concrete hole in the ground at Canary Wharf where they're supposed to be building a theatre with a show they were co-producing. It was opening in 10 months' time. So in amongst all of that, they then kind of threw themselves into taking us on and starting a VFX company. And I think they're a really good partner. They come from creative backgrounds. They were theatre producers, and they kind of understand how the kind of industry works. They were running theatres and live events during COVID when that hit. So they're quite aware of what the ups and downs can be in that kind of volatile environment as well. So I think, with their support, it's been really successful so far.
Yeah, and it fit quite well. I think it was one of those, the more you look at theaters, the more there are screens and media, and we're like, okay, that could be something. We, a lot of the directors shoot on stage. A lot of directors actually come and make theater productions. So it turns out that the theater and VFX world have kind of interesting overlaps that we didn't think so much before. And it's also nice to have a studio that it's not just driven by VFX revenue. So there was a bit of this, okay, this could be really interesting. So instead of looking for specific jobs, we were like, look, we're all coming from middle management places, and let's restart. Let's really start from zero. Like, there was no email, and I know the brand was bought out, which sometimes is a bit confusing, and I didn't know this was possible as such personally. So Jellyfish, the brand was bought, but nothing else. So it was just us, no infrastructure, no email. We literally had to coordinate on WhatsApp and Google, and everything was gone except for the name and the 6 of us. So here's a quick picture of us.
Yeah, so there's obviously Paul and myself, and there's Phil Greenlow, who's managing director, then Jamie, head of 2D, Amber, who's head of production, and Luke, who's our creative director. And I think just building on what Paul said, the 6 of us working together was kind of the appeal. Like, with the right support, we were quietly confident that we could do it. There was always an element of, if we do it for 6 months, we'll probably learn a load of stuff. It will make us more valuable maybe in the future for someone else. But yeah, it was a bit of a leap of faith. I remember having quite long chats with my wife of what it might take for the first 6 months to go from literally nothing. Was that something we were willing to kind of undertake and do? And I think it's quite hard to do it without the support of kind of, your family or people around you. And it's a bit of when you kind of think it through, you've gone from almost like no job on the Monday to Phil called me the following Monday and was like, look, this could be on. And it's quite a roller coaster of emotions in a week. I'd planned my summer off. I was going to scarify my lawn and do some gardening, and all of a sudden it was, we were back at it.
We're back at it. And it was like, I had about 35, 40 people in my team at Jellyfish, so they're very healthy TD, like brilliant technical people. Really sad, obviously, to see that dismantle, but then also going back into, okay, we can rebuild something, we can rethink some of this, we can do it a bit differently, let's bring some people back, let's create new opportunity, go through that moment of like, let's reimagine things. And And as part of that, Jellyfish was born. So within weeks, we were given the mandate of restarting things. And I think it would have been very easy to go back to going like, okay, we know how to do this at this studio, how we do it at that studio. And I think this is I've often seen this in scaled journeys. Brilliant people come together and they go like, oh, at this studio I did it like this, and at that studio I did it like this. I just want to copy this. But you often forget actually the journey it takes for studios to go to what people have experienced at the end. Right? The end result is what gets people excited. But we were at the beginning of a journey, so it's really more about what problems do we want to solve rather than what are the solutions we are familiar with. And we knew the landscape had changed. We were post-COVID, post-strikes, post-closure. We wanted to respond to new gig economy, freelance markets, reduced budgets, and really rethink how do you respond practically to this uncertainty and see it as an opportunity. So go a little bit from the, oh my God, we all lost our job, to, no, we are actually now back in the driving seat. We have a chance to build something new. We together have worked before. We have solved problems before. We can do that. So we sat together quite quickly and said, look, we have all been in the big studios, like Phil, our MD, he was producing Lion King, Jungle Book at BBC, so DNEG, Micros, when we frames, all of these experiences were there, but we're like, look, I think we can do this differently, and let's really focus on 3 pillars. And a lot of this is, I think, not completely radical, but I think it was also important that we named it, because there are alternatives to this, and I think you always have to make a choice, and if that choice is not quite right, you pivot, but we really chose the boutique over building another massive studio, and with boutique we mean something up to 100, 150 people. Really put the talent first. I mean, this is, I think, something we'll talk more. It's interesting from a tech side, but I truly believe into if you bring the right people, you can solve any problem rather than going, oh, we're now all AI or we're all this or that. Like, you know, who are the people? How do we attract the right talent? How do we give them the right ecosystem to do great work? And then we can respond to whatever the market needs to do. And obviously, having just seen this huge up and down, build it in a sustainable and lean way so that we can respond and the next curveball doesn't throw us off track. So you might say, well, that's nice and good, but how did you actually do that? So this is now, I think, what we want to really get into and what we mean by that. So naturally, it started with boutique. We all had to go back to hands-on leadership. It was quite refreshing at first. I think we all were worried that a startup would be this, oh, everyone has to work until midnight and everything is crazy. It wasn't actually like this, because I think we all had spent so much. I mean, my job really was Jira tickets and Miro boards and Excel spreadsheets before at the end, and now I had to set up a deadline server again and had to kind of learn how to deal with sort of, back into rocky shell scripting, and thank God for AI, but it was more about replacing some of these strategic thoughts and bring it back hands-on, and the speed of decision-making was the first thing we all were like, okay, wow, this is different. And I think people very often overestimate how much time it takes to get started, and then maybe underestimate how long it takes to complete something, but we got started so quickly. The second choice we made, like we want to stay this remote-first approach. We have a small office thanks to Troubadour in central London, but we, from the beginning, said we want to really have boutique, but people from everywhere, and we want to shoot for the highest level. We all came from great work. We want to continue that great work. So, talent first. It's, from a tech and operations point of view, hire globally from the start. We all had experience working with anywhere before. So it was like, well, if someone from anywhere wants to work for us, we set everything up like this. We want to be hyper-responsive, so quick on onboarding. This was, I think, in the responsive gig economy. We're like, we can't have a week-long onboarding. I think one of my first jobs, I had 2 weeks of onboarding time, and I watched videos, and I didn't do anything really. It's like, this is not how we can respond anymore. We say we need tools that are easy to learn. We can't have a lot of stuff that people need to spend time with learning, so we need to really build something that people can sit down, maybe they even know it from other studios. And then what is quite nice when you rebuild, you can obviously pick fantastic people that really align with you. And then from a tech perspective, rather than putting too much on rails, my vision for this one was really like, let's restart with power to talent. So I get into this a bit later, but it's really about, for me, like building a platform these days than a pipeline. It was actually quite nice to see even AYON has, I think, somewhat rebranded platform to pipeline in many ways. We really put this first, which lines up well with that. And quickly, I'll show you some pictures in a second, but this is more the business side of things that we really learned, where a certain consciousness about cash flow, maybe because we just went through this redundancy and obviously running out of cash, it really started to go into areas where we as creatives or technologists maybe sometimes don't think so much about it, but obviously once the company doesn't have cash to pay anyone, it doesn't matter how much value you had, and that's what hurt so much with Jellyfish. It was a good company. We were doing like feature films and 2 feature films in parallel, and where there's things that could be better, always, but it was a very healthy operative business, and that's seeing like dismantled into the complete abyss within like an hour, really, or a second, or 1 email, was brutal. So now really thinking about, okay, how do we move more to an OpEx model over a CapEx model? So how do we really move towards spending as we go, rather than lots of money now, maybe something later? So just build this nimble system, work with partners, like from an infrastructure as a service to AYON platform as a service, and then democratize tech, like make it really visible to anyone in the studio what things cost and how things work. So it's not like everyone takes ownership of running a successful business that stays cash flow positive or profitable, right? It needs to be a business that works, that delivers creative, but also delivers value. And yeah, I mean, this is more like some of the details. I mean, we can go more in detail into this afterwards, but really one of the ideas to make this happen was we decided, for example, that we don't want to have any storage locally anymore. Like we made that the source of our truth is now completely in Wasabi and S3, having edge servers attached to that artists work of. So through some peer-to-peer software or platform as a service, infrastructure as a service, we cache the data that artists need locally to them, which makes it really easy to go, okay, you want to work in Canada or South America, we can just spin another edge server up in these regions and cache the data that the team needs to there, and then use AWS's backbone to exchange data globally. So we don't really have to worry anymore about file sync or anything like that. It's very much one source of truth, edge servers with fast NVMEs that cache the data locally, and artists working through it. Everything is PCOIP. There isn't a single machine that's not in our private cloud. We partnered up with HP, who provide the workstations with us. And then we obviously have benefits by having everything cloud native, that plugging AWS into this becomes quite trivial in the grand scheme of things, because the data is already in the cloud. So needing more machines, more instances in the cloud, or compute in the cloud suddenly becomes very different to what we had to do before, where we had to go like, okay, we need to now upload terabytes of data, and in 3 days maybe it's there, and then we have to download the data again, and all of this is now much easier.
So I think it's worth noting the only hardware we actually have is like our monitors and the tiny computers in the office to log in. Like we don't, nothing else.
Nothing else, I think. Yeah,
like we can buy it all off Curry's, like everything that we need to run our business from the office.
And it gives a lot of confidence, because we obviously have seen the big one, but if now someone turns around and says, well, can you hire 50 people? It's not that hard, because we know we can scale up the infrastructure quickly, we can scale the platforms up quickly, and and we don't need much. I think it's very nimble compared to before. And this is maybe a bit of a side. I mean, you all have heard the saying, like, teach a man to fish, and he'll eat for a day. And give a man a fish, and I'm getting confused by my own silly meme. But buy a man, eat fish, he day, teach a man to a lifetime. Well, you know what the real saying is. But where I come in many ways, where I come from pipeline, CG Soup experience, we often were so cautious about building their pipeline, and their pipeline isn't good, or we have to make sure that people don't step out of the pipeline. And it's so much anxiety, I feel like, happened over the years about, these TDs are building a shadow pipeline over there, and why doesn't the core team do that, and where does a pipeline TD start, and where does a pipeline TD stop, and should they be built to a show, or do they work for the company, and we can't change this tool because we built it, we have to use it even though it's actually not that good. So one thing we consciously started thinking about differently is to think more about platform and tools, and go, no, you don't change the platform per show, but you absolutely can change the tools per show. So thinking about it, if the tool delivers value today, you build it. Like here are the APIs, here's access. You as a smart person, and especially now with AI exit, if you have the right platform, the TDs or technical artists can do incredible things. Like, and I'm really getting kind of reducing my anxiety a little bit and going like, no, I do believe this is actually true. We don't have to prescribe how to work anymore. There's like with Houdini and you know, tools around it. How do we empower people to build amazing tools on top of a platform and then make it more a focus of how do we build the most robust platform for artists and TDs to solve the problems for the client? And it has many benefits. I think there's way less anxiety about a shadow pipeline because we go like, well, you know, if the tool works on multiple shows, we can absolutely incorporate it in the platform, but if it goes away after a show and it had delivered value, then don't worry about sunk cost, right? It's about throw it away, build it better. If tomorrow someone new comes in who has a better idea, just do it. Bring the pixels on screen, deliver value on screen. And yeah, I think it helps with managing technical debt and total cost of ownership and a lot of those things where in hindsight we've spent so much time worrying about maintaining tools and updating tools by focusing on kind of this platform tool mindset and making the pipeline more a CG soup job, really, or a 2D soup job. It has helped us kind of untangle some of this. And AYON was, in this case, like an incredible partner and has been so far and still is, of building this platform to go, okay, this is the core, but we can now add stuff on top, and some artists have built some amazing things with GraphQL, and myself even have built some stuff very quickly that changed what a pipeline is for us in many ways. And yeah, very practically, I mean, this is not rocket science, but we really feel like this allows us to democratize technology in a new way. And I think that's the way things have to go. Like we need to expose stuff to talent, and you know, it's simple things like having the license servers, like with a nice web UI. Like I don't want to get emails from artists anymore. Like, oh, can I have a nuke license, or we have one neat video license, or 10 or whatever. Where is it? So quickly, just exposing all this data to artists. All the data in the cloud, we expose all the costs to production to go, this is how much your show costs. Like, do you want to, like, I don't mind if you want to not delete anything, but here's the cost, make a choice. And this, I think, allows a way healthier, quicker dialogue to go, well, you know, today we don't have to delete something because we have to deliver. And we deliver today, we don't worry about storage. Tomorrow we have to worry about storage. And before this, when it was very much in tech's hand, suddenly tech became the one to blame about, oh, we're running out of storage, or why is the storage bill so high? And things like this are now way more collaborative workflow between artists, production, technology, but putting all the data central and empowering our teams to think that through.
I mean, the fact we can't run out of storage now because how it's set up is a blessing and a curse, because we can just cache to our heart's content and it will never fill up, but we need to pay for it at the end of the month. So.
I sleep better.
Yeah.
Our MD doesn't sleep much anymore now that he sees these emails every Sunday evening, but at least from a tech point of view, I'm very happy we can't run out of storage. So, yeah, I mean, it's another quick chart, but it's really that thought of the platform now being in the middle rather than a pipeline where then the new gizmos, Houdini HDAs, etc., sit on top, and we've given teams access to the platform. I will say we don't give everyone, or we don't encourage everyone to write scripts directly to the farm and whatever. Like, I think it's still possible it's still risky, obviously, but the days from like 10 years ago, or even 5 years ago, where a TD could quickly write a script that deletes everything or that blocks the farm, I personally think they're mostly gone, and maybe we were too worried about some of those things. So I think with good APIs and good boundaries, you can actually build a much healthier tool. And the feedback we got from senior artists particularly, I think they've really, so far, really enjoyed it, because it's been like, yeah, we sit down, we want to fix something, we just do it, and by lunchtime I've solved that problem that otherwise I would have had to make a ticket, and I come to a steering committee and we talk about it, and a week later maybe I get permission, and then I don't have access to GitHub, and so this is...
Someone's on holiday.
Someone's on holiday, and we just more like, and obviously this is a privilege of being a smaller studio, but I think this is something that we, at least I believe very much, we can continue to keep scaling in that direction. Yeah, then maybe a bit more about workflow.
Yeah, so I'll go a little bit more into, you know, our pipeline. And one thing we kind of thought about is at the core, like a VFX pipeline at core is actually a very simple problem. It doesn't sound it, but all you're trying to do is just pass data from one package or one department or one person to another to eventually end up in pixels that go to the client. So obviously, like, we want to expand, we want to do bigger, better work and stuff, but it's very easy, like Paul said, it's very easy to get carried away at the start, especially we all come from kind of big shops and be like, well, what if we one day need to do 2,000 shots? Like, we're not doing 2,000 shots tomorrow. So let's not worry about that. Let's kind of be like, what can we do? We had to basically deliver shots within 6 weeks of starting. I think we were delivering our first versions. So we're very much trying to focus on what that really kind of simple problem we were trying to solve early on. So like USD was a really key part of that because it's a really great backbone to a pipeline. We used it previously at Jellyfish. We both came from DNEG. It had asset packages. It was kind of like a very early version of that as well. So that whole workflow for us just feels very, very natural. It's very easy to package stuff. It's very easy to then add different packages in or something like that. Like, even like Nuke with the USD support now, it's, you want to preview something on Unreal, like it's just very easy. You want to bring your whole shot back into Maya because the animator wants to see what layout's done, or, even you can bring like, effects stuff back into Maya for the animator to reanimate to. Like it just gives a lot of flexibility and it's all built in. It's something that I think from day one we were like, that has to be the backbone of our pipeline. That was probably the only kind of red line I think we had was this has to work with USD because it protects you in the future, and it just has a lot of advantages. But then on the other hand, we never wanted the pipeline and our workflow to be a blocker. Like, we're quite a small company, don't want someone, they're working late to get a delivery out or something, it happens and suddenly, oh, hang on, it's errored, the cache hasn't worked, it's not, something like that. So it's like, you always want to make sure, that's fine, there'll be ways, just, cache it to Alembic, make sure you can import it. So we didn't want it to be also this locked, black box that no one really knows how it was. Like 3 people that worked at a company for 20 years, and they're the only people that really know how it works. And that, we didn't want to have that issue. So that was another part of it as well, as making sure that there's always workarounds, there's always ways to get around it. So any other key architectural decision from day one was we had ShotGrid for asset management and publishing before, which is not the most scalable. I mean, we delivered 3 feature animations and Norses with it, but it's not the most scalable solution. So that was another thing. Again, having a separate database that you publish into, you control versions, you manage versions. So, I mean, at the time when we kind of laying this out, it seemed like quite a unachievable goal, if I'm honest. We're like, well, we kind of want what we had before, but we want it better. And then obviously AYON.
Less work.
Yeah, and less work. Like we didn't want to write it. And then, I mean, no surprise that we're here, but AYON came along and it seemed to fit all our goals. It's got the USD backbone. It's got normal publishing, so you can get around stuff. Like, it doesn't take over the application. It's just kind of nice, like in and out of the application you're working in. So all the tools you use within that application all still work. It all makes sense. There's no like kind of custom thing that, if you want to use Solaris, you have to use all the AYON nodes. No, you just have your AYON shot in, your AYON publish, render, whatever at the bottom, and everything else is native in between. And that native way of working is really key for onboarding and bringing on artists, because especially Houdini is the backbone of our pipeline. There's so many tutorials out there. Like, it's not like 20 years ago where you have a book like that and you've got to read through to page 55 to work out how to put down whatever node to do something. And having all that ability, like having all that available was pretty key. So that came along. We went with a tried and tested DCC, which was Maya, Houdini, Nuke, is a backbone of what we do, because we know how to use it. We know people know how to use it. I think that kind of covers. That's quite a quick dump of our first kind of 6 weeks of how do we make a pipeline. But it was, there's areas where it makes sense, I think, to make a bit of a leap of faith and be a bit inventive. But I think there's certain areas where you're just like, actually, we know this works. We've delivered high-end work with this. Every studio has delivered high-end work with this. That was where we wanted to be safe in DCCs, and then be a bit more kind of inventive in the way we did it, the way we interacted with them, and I think it's worked.
I think we were really built. I think consciously we had the discussions about, okay, the landscape is shifting. We're not blind to what's going on with Blender or AI and all these tools, but I do believe as a sustainable business, and I think we all believe you really need to build it from the bottom up. Like, we need to have an infrastructure that we know can go anywhere with us, and after a year we've achieved that now. Where I do think I'd be comfortable putting 1,000 people into that framework. Not that we maybe want to, but if from an infrastructure perspective, we can do that. We now feel the platform level is maturing in many ways. Like we know we can put stuff through this, and we are now, maybe it's a bit like the conclusion in the end too later, but from then on, I think this gives a lot of peace and confidence to the team and the talent that we bring in to explore and try something new, because they don't have to spend so much time figuring out how does something work and where do I find this, and or if I do that, I run into this issue. And I think by building this robust, transparent, working system, now we have a whole team that just can deliver shots while other people can start pushing the boundaries further.
One area that we were a little bit more experimental on, and we started playing with early on, and I'll talk a little bit more later about how it's been so successful, was Karma XPU. I don't know how many people have used it, but the Karma XPU renderer for us has been a genuine game changer, like not needing a massive render farm to spin up to render the CPU. Like we've been rendering final 4K renders that would have been 6 to 10 hours in 5 to 10 minutes. Like it's been that much of a speed up, that much of a change in how we work and the iterations of what artists can achieve. And it's like, you're not kind of changing a couple of things, hitting render and waiting for an hour to get something back to see if it's worked. It's, it's obviously not real time, but it's almost that real time interactive way of working for an artist. And then, it brings us onto AYON and kind of why we liked it. Obviously, full USD was a massive thing for us. Being a small company, we weren't in a position to hire a huge pipeline team. We didn't necessarily want to take that on ourselves. Working with these guys has been, I honestly don't think we could have done or achieved what we've done without AYON as a partner.
Milan will buy a drink now.
Thanks.
Yeah. And I think, maybe we just going a step further, right? Like, now what happened after a year? So it's been pretty much exactly a year. Remember last year, sat in this room, texting in the back, like, oh, we need an Active Directory server and we need like a license server, and how do we do this? So we are pretty much exactly 1 year later, and we delivered 790 shots so far, have hired over 50 people back, that a lot of familiar faces, which is fantastic. And we really hope to see many of the 650 that we had back through the doors at some point. One thing I'm very proud of, we can onboard people in 2 to 4 hours, and it has happened that producers in the morning tell us we would like to hire 2 people, 3 people, and by lunchtime they're actually comping shots, which, you can argue this is maybe tricky from a gig economy perspective, but at the same time, the fact that we have automated the setup so quickly, we can provision infrastructure and software and licenses so swiftly, and then the tools are so natively easy to use that you can start working rather than 2 weeks in a 2-hour.
It's not our preferred way of working. Hiring people in the morning for the afternoon, but sometimes needs must. Notes comes back, someone's off ill, or
it's possible, right? I think this is ultimately we want as a business to create some opportunities, and that one has been a real game changer for us. Also to think through that properly. We got TPN Silver certified, which was a huge achievement. I think very quickly going through the entire security setup by having it very much in cloud native, with a small office, all pixels streamed, and doing things kind of properly from the beginning got us the formerly gold shield, now silver shield.
How many points did you need to answer? How many questions do you need to answer?
I buy anyone who has gone through it a beer, because once the auditors ask you 1,103 different questions to answer, and you have to tick them all off. It's like I came to make movies, not to do that, but we did it. It's done. So I'm very proud. We got through that, even though it was painful. We completed 5 full.
Yeah, five projects to date, 3 in production, and about 790 shots. Works out just over 3 shots final to day since the day we started, which, given the first few months was building.
Which was like from literally having only our private Gmails to full corporate setup.
Some of the shows we've delivered on. So I think this work we've delivered is quite a good indication of where we want to operate, what we want to do. Like we want to appeal to kind of both ends of the market. We want to help people make their film, and I think the first film we delivered was Goodbye June, which is Kate Winslet's directorial debut, which I think will always remain quite close to us. It was we were on set for it as well. We were the sole vendor, and it's quite a personal story to her, and helping her work with her closely to deliver that as our first film as well. She was delivering her first film, felt quite a monumental achievement, really, like the trust that they put in us to kind of keep the work with us and, yeah, let us continue with it. Knowing kind of what was going on was, yeah, I think we'll always be indebted to some of our all of our clients that have stuck with us. Yeah, really funny person as well, and really nice to work with. She was quite funny on set. Watching Timothy Spall act was quite a career highlight. Being there for that. But yeah, we can show you some of the work that obviously we can't show a lot of what we've worked on at the moment, unfortunately, but we'll show you some of the work across Goodbye June and Secret Service. Ever effects cache that I'll ever do and ever find in a shot.
You did well.
Needs must.
After working on Nautilus at Jellyfish, and we seem to be doing lots of water and snow all the time.
Yeah, we get lots of snow.
But obviously lots of 2D and set extensions so far, but because of CG, have been very much at the end of most recently what we've been working on. But I think, why don't we jump into this quickly, sure?
Yeah, so this trailer for Ladies First that comes out soon, but keep an eye out quite towards the start of the trailer. There's which we can't really talk about too much, but there's a full CG environment villa quite early on.
Once upon a time, there was a man named Damien.
Yeah. Ruby, I've got a high priority project for you.
You cannot legally make me break up with one of your girlfriends again.
He was an arsehole.
Fortunately, this story is also about a woman named Alex.
We're meeting up later at the pub for happy hour.
Oh, wow. I think my happy hour days might be long behind me.
Oh, I wasn't inviting you.
Ooh.
The clients want to increase their female market share. Above all, women just want to feel heard, right?
I think they want to be heard.
Alex, I'm in the middle of an idea, but it's so good to have you in the room. I really appreciate it.
God, what a punchable face.
Hey. There you go.
Can you tell us what happened, love? You on any medication? The pill?
The pill?
Look after that pretty face, all right?
What? Ruby, give me an ice pack.
Shall I pick up your dry cleaning as well?
She's a lady.
Damien, what are you doing in my office?
What are you talking about? This is my office. Damien, please. Don't laugh at me. What is this? Jesus.
Good Lord, he needs to knock one out.
This is not my house.
Now to Beatrice the Third.
My sperm, my choice.
Whose fucking cat is this? She's a lady. Women are in charge here.
What? It's a smile.
Where the hell am I?
Hey, Damien. That's my girl.
How do I get out of here?
You make a change.
But she always knows her place. She's got style, she's got grace. She's okay.
Amongst these gems is the premier testicle bra. They'll make your little fellas fly.
Take me back! Shit! You stole my job.
You need to relax.
I'm just getting started.
You see the blonde on that?
He wants to sit at the big girls' table.
The board at any balls, I'd be the CEO of my...
How many balls? The delicate sacs that dangle from your body with the slightest tap sends you weeping to the ground.
Yes.
She's a lady.
Can you change a tie?
No, I'm a man.
Father fucker.
She's a lady.
There's quite a lot of work. There's a lot of invisible work in there. There's a lot of our shots in that trailer. But then going on, one of the more exciting things that we've worked on that unfortunately we can't talk too much about is we wanted to grow sustainably. We wanted to start off 2D, and then all of a sudden we were doing 22 shots of a full CG up close tiger, which sort of escalated things quite quickly towards the end of last year when we took that work on. But it was something we set out to do at the very start. We were like, we want to operate in a certain area. We want to do certain quality of work in it. We had this opportunity, and we weren't gonna turn it down. So yeah, it was full muscle sim using Houdini 21 Otis muscles, and I think that's part of our pipeline that's quite key, is the ability to take on, especially because of AYON, be able to take on new software versions really quickly without having a load of legacy tech debt. So we were able to run all our muscle sims in 21, and then obviously cache out to USD, and then we could still render in 20.5 just because we had some issues with 21. Again, all camera XPU, we were rendering the longest render frames when it was like, kind of this close up to camera. 4K was about 20 to 30 minutes a frame, which I think anyone that's done creature work before will know normally, you kind of set it off on a Friday and you're worried it won't be done by the Monday. So that level of iteration, be able to iterate every shot like 6, 7, 8, 9 times, a client would give a really small anim note like on Tuesday evening, and we'll give a version back to them on Wednesday afternoon to review fully lit comped was, I think that way of working has been a real eye-opener to us and something.
And it was like with the people too, right? What I really enjoyed about this, we could hire some of the most amazing talent from MPC, etc., who could sit down and just go like, look, here's your Houdini. What do you need? And within literally hours, they were starting to produce incredible work, like really like where we were like, wow, this would have taken us in other places weeks to get to this place where, as what we really believed in, is like you have good people with a challenge and a platform that supports them. We are able to create real art and real game-changing work, and that I think this brings me to the conclusion. I think this is really where I think we managed quite well to go. Everyone's still alive.
Where we might not be now.
We really managed, I think, looking back now for years, like we really managed that bidirectional setup that we were thinking about a year ago, where, and it worked. Like, I mean, one of the stories we didn't mention, but last November we were around 30 people, and then a project disappeared, as they do, and we were like, we have to go down to 15. And within hours, we had given all the machines back. We kind of reduced the licenses. We basically phased everything down, went into a 15-people studio again for a couple months without having all the capex or even opex in this case. Like Laura responded immediately to the market. And then when it picked up again early this year, we went back to 40 people or just shy of 40 people. We could do that again within hours rather than weeks. So we managed to go both directions really quickly, and very, very proud of that. The simplicity, it reduces onboarding friction. I mean, easy. Obviously it does. But we got very positive feedback from artists about just using simple things like single sign-on, branding things properly, making it easy, like removing these little things that annoy everyone. Like I want an artist to sit down, everything should be where it is, and just get started. And if you have questions, let's talk about it as individuals rather than through a giant machine. And we've seen really incredible work come from our crew. But we also say, we have been quite privileged that we've come from big networks, big companies. I think it's a very personal industry, very small industry, and we couldn't have done it with the various partners and people we've met and connected with over the years. So connect with us after the call too, and it's been like having these partnerships from a software, infrastructure, talent perspective, where you just know the right person for the job. You can ring them up, they join you. You know the right, AYON folks do this. We know the HP people. We know the whatever it is. So I think networks really were actually critical for what we did. But not everything was. We definitely learned some more things too. I think we got very busy at some point, and maybe the two orange ones at the top are somewhat overlapping. But because we were so hands-on in many ways, I think at some point you then sometimes forget that you also need to step outside and look at the big picture again. And you're so busy. Well, I was so busy, let's say, at some point, managing the storage migration to this new cloud-first setup that we were maybe missing out on getting a TD in earlier to help with actually connecting some of the dots for delivery and ingest tooling, which in the beginning was very manual. That's fine, but once you're 50 people, it's not. So there's definitely something in hindsight. I would have hired a TD earlier to just delegate some of this stuff to. We're now I think we've hit this very normal phase where I think up to 40 you can do things quite well on Slack, and then from 40 to 100 you need, or Teams or whatever, you need to start having a bit more structure. So we're working right now on this, and then. Yeah, I mean, we went from a big studio to like, oh, everything is as a service, is amazing. There's no debt, we can install anything, and it was great. But you obviously it doesn't mean you have fewer dependencies. And while we really enjoy working with partners to shoulder some of these dependencies issues, the industry obviously throws you bones from RAM shortage to shipping supplies to like OPEX is great until it actually goes up and down, and you go like, oh, okay, this is maybe tough. But it also means certain things like, I don't know, deadline, moving to deadline cloud coming next, or HP announcing that Teradici or HP anyways is changing or phasing out. So these are all obviously things, these dependencies are still there, they still need to be managed. I think the way we've set things up, it gives us confidence that we can manage it very proactively rather than just stumbling behind because we've taken on too much on our side that maybe we underestimated. So yeah, I think
that covers. I mean, that's a year and a very short time.
Of our time here. So maybe, I don't know, if anyone wants to hear more about the parts, let us know now or after. But yeah, thank you so much for being part of the journey.
Do we have any questions? I think we can do it with Mike this time.
What were your biggest challenges and findings while setting up a studio into the cloud, especially regarding sort of the costs and sort of basically the whole challenge?
So the question is like, what were the challenges of setting up a studio in the cloud?
Yeah.
I think it's always challenging, and especially with cost, it's challenging. One thing we did early, we found an infrastructure partner with HP that in this case really helped us build a model that is actually very efficient. We very early shared that vision of this kind of up and down scaling and the price responsiveness, like very short commit times. And yeah, we have a solution with them now in the private cloud that worked quite well. But we also were, I think, quite humble from the start to go, we don't need the full solution on day one. So in the beginning, we were like 10 people. We just had a simple NAS plugged into the ecosystem. It's like, well, this is not where we want to be, but for 50 shots is fine. And we say like, but in 6 months,
I mean, we did find a ceiling on that.
And it got slow. Like he'd rendered something and then no one could work. So
I rendered a Tiger and no one could work for like 2 hours.
Everyone shut down. It's like, what's going on? I was, oh, we're pulling, I don't know, 5,000 textures, which is nothing in a grand scheme. We literally came out of where we rendered, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of frames. I think overall at Jellyfish, we were like, oh, you render one Tiger and the entire network crumbles, so there was a lot of that. This, I think, was probably one of the first big challenges. But we knew where we wanted to be. Like, we knew that we wanted to be in this edge, NVMe edge setup and cloud and a native storage. We picked Wasabi because of the egress fees. We have a Resilio setup that caches things locally, so it's like a peer-to-peer, which works for us really well at this point. And I think this is the one thing I believe in is this, like, having a plan is important, but the plan isn't. So we had this plan of where we want to be, but it didn't mean we just didn't start the work because we hadn't figured all the details out. So we said, okay, this is our plan. Let's start with what we can do like next week, set it up and move towards this. And as we then went, we pivoted around. Like we for example, learned that the drives we had for the NVMe setup were too slow, and then we had to migrate just before Christmas the whole server architecture around together with HP, and we could have never predicted that. But because cloud is the source of truth, like spinning up a new edge server was actually quite easy in that sense.
I think one of the advantages when you did hit the issues is it wasn't hardware that we own. So we've not just gone and spent £50,000 on all this equipment and then realised that, oh, that's not suitable. For us, it's like you can replace it out, you can upgrade it. I think going to the other thing about cloud and cost is because we're rendering a Karma XPU, and the render times, we don't have to spin up like huge render farm or huge render cloud, and that's where I think a cloud can get really expensive when you need that on-demand burst for like 6 hours or something like that. And I think that's a cost that to date we've kind of avoided. I'm sure we'll hit a point where we need it, but that's definitely been keeping our render times down to what we have done has been a big part of that being successful.
Thanks.
You're trying to kill me. I have just one. I think you mentioned it, but I forgot. So you said that it took you from the moment that you got a get-go from Troubadour, hey, we're going. How long was it until you delivered first shots? Like when you were like, okay, this shot is finished, roughly.
I don't know how long it was till our first final. It was probably a little while, but we were doing like version zeros and stuff like that in about a few weeks.
Couple of weeks maybe.
Yeah, I think when was it? Yeah, I reckon.
Because we started super simple. We started literally with a machine, no active direct, nothing managed. It was like download, nuke, install it, start working. It was like, well, this is very different to running a 650 people studio. And like we were downloading things with like having some sort of Wasabi FTP server. They were like super scrappy. But while we were doing this, we were setting up the core infrastructure with the Active Directory, something like PDQ, so for deployment. All of this was kind of built in parallel while the first artists were working. So I think we were working within days we would working on shots, and then maybe in a couple of weeks we started having AYON and core infrastructure.
Yeah, I reckon first like final was probably, I'd say somewhere between 2.5, 3 months. But yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah. And running on the actual infra that you
on the proper infrastructure. I think within a month we had the core infrastructure running.
Yeah, that's kind of what I mean. Of course, you can deliver from nuke straight away. But, I mean,
exactly.
When you felt that we have something that's functional at this point, then we can.
Yeah, after months we had a pipeline, I would say. So after a few days, people were working. After months, we had a pipeline and core infrastructure, and then it was, I think 3, 4, 5 months of just getting some of the basic things set up and tightening security and all of those things. And then after 6 months, we migrated to the cloud-native storage infrastructure. That was like just before Christmas.
Yeah.
And then the last 6 months, we've mostly delivered work, and we've just been incredibly busy.
Yeah. Since Christmas, it's been a bit. I think doing this talk as well is been quite good to be like where we've kind of gone in the first year. It'd be very easy to now be like, well, we've kind of done it and just stay like that for next year. But we want to keep pushing our.
Yeah, we
kind of our technology. And
thanks for listening to us while we're on the couch, reflecting on a year of burning to the ground and rebuilding, really.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? In the back.
So obviously you guys have been in the industry for a long time and in various states. Quite a simple question. Do you enjoy this more, being smaller, kind of getting back to the roots, dealing with big problems and small problems?
Yes, I can answer that quite quickly. For me personally, I think while working on like the big high-end stuff, I kind of left that. I mean, I was working mid-Matrix when I left DNEG, which that should be like loving it. And I think I don't know, for some reason I just quite like the invisible VFX and stuff as well. I like a lot of work we did that we shared is quite invisible. I do really enjoy that part of it. Something that someone watches it and it's like no one's ever going to know that's there. Like I think there's a place for bigger stuff, and I think it's a really challenging, really interesting problem. But for some reason at the moment, I just quite enjoy what we're doing and having more, not like control over it, but working with the filmmakers like more closely and stuff as well is really nice.
Yeah, and it's very. I think it's a really exciting time to do this. I think for the first time, looking back 15 years ago, you had to still, maybe people were writing their own renderers, and then now you can get the Rendermans and the Arnolds to deliver you the most amazing work. And then some people are still writing fluid solvers or their own CG software. And I think now with the AWS emergence of all the open standards and the maturing, AYON coming in as a cool platform, I think it's the first time you can build a studio where you have all the tools there, and the challenge now becomes in how you architect and deploy it and how you bring people together to use the tools to create rather than having a gap in your end-to-end workflow. And to your question, I personally enjoy building things. So for me, it's like I've loved the last year, really. I loved the time at Jellyfish or at DNEG before too. It's always like this journey of like, hey, we have 0 people, or we have 6 people, we have 50 people, and we want to get to here. So I think being on that journey, but the speed you can iterate now, the partnerships you can use, like, so your question about the cloud earlier, like I'm not a cloud expert. I mean, and also what do I know about deep Linux systems administration? But if you work with the right partners and go like, look, this is what we want to do, lean into their knowledge, lean into the knowledge that's out there, and bring these things together, I think you can, the future studio is just brilliant people coordinated and brought together in a smart way, rather than the individual tools being so particularly smart. Like, no one out there will deliver better shots because they built their own QuickTime generator a little bit better than someone else. I think there's so much commodity out there now from a tech perspective, but there's still a lot of confusion of how to bring it together. And I think that's the fun part now of going like, we're in a really exciting time where a lot of knowledge, this community, this industry has created is now available. And by picking and choosing and carefully finding and arranging the right talent to use it, you can just create some amazing pictures, really.
I mean, don't get me wrong, I went to Weta's Stranger Things talk yesterday and it was like incredible. I mean, like, it's still at awe when you see some of the work out there, but it comes with its own challenges and different challenges.
So if there are no other questions, going once, go. Oh, there you go, see. Just need to give people time.
It's been really interesting sort of hearing about the sort of rebirth of your studio and stuff like that, and very interesting to hear how you've sort of changed have a different approach in the second iteration of things. And obviously it's a huge milestone to have made it for a year. I'd be interested to know where you're going for the next year. Is there a goal, or is it just to sort of keep doing what you're doing? What's the sort of next step for JFX?
I think it's a combination of the two. Like I said before, it'd be very easy to be like, well, we've got a pipeline, we've got workflow, it just kind of stays like that. We do nice work, it's nice, but I think we want to start looking at bringing in some new tech, new ways, not necessarily new ways of working, but just ways to improve what we're doing. I think like the stuff that Roy was showing previous to us with node graph and stuff, I think there's a lot we can do there to help push automate workflows a little bit more, to whatever we can do so the artists are spending more time working on the images, the pixels, not doing their light and slap to send to dailies and changing the version status so it gets picked up from the playlist. And trying to remove all of that stuff from an artist's life, I think is our goal. And then just looking at other ways of working, looking at with Troubadour, kind of other related projects and work, and try and diversify a little bit. I think everyone here knows, VFX and TV and film is great, but it's quite a volatile market. It has a lot of ups and downs. So whatever we can do to try and bridge those kind of low points between projects and stuff, it's a bit of everything, and just make sure we're still kind of, not necessarily innovating, but updating what we're doing. Because I think since Christmas we've been quite stable in how we've worked. I mean, you guys will know we didn't update the pipeline for about 4 months, I think, because it was pretty stable. I think much to your frustration when we were like, oh, we need to update it all. I think it's very easy to fall into that routine, especially when you're busy. But I think we need to take a bit of a step back, and this talk's been quite a good way of looking at what we've achieved, and some of the things that maybe we didn't quite do that we set out. We were like, maybe we want to look at Unreal, which we didn't. Is there a place for it in our pipeline? We don't know, but starting to explore some of those areas and workflows, I think, is my goal for the next 12 months.
And I think we have, if you look at this chart, we've kind of stabilized the bottom two now. They're very much a maintenance mode, there's a minimal crew supporting that. So we're kind of at the top of the pyramid now, thinking like what tools help solve certain problems, and bring those back into the mix. There's obviously some infrastructure changes that are still coming, like moving to Deadline Cloud, for example. We know we want to be more resilient with AWS, etc., and things like that. But we feel very confident now that the infrastructure and platform is there, and now we can actually build more of the fun stuff on top, from multi-shot workflows to maybe use some AI already on some of the shows. But it's just getting a bit more into this space, but without. It's just part of what we do. It's just another tool in the mix. So it weaves through the way, but we stand on something that no one of us has to lose sleep over. Oh, we get 100 shots. We don't know what to do with it. Like we know it works.
Thank you very much. I think we're out of time. So thank you guys once again. If you're coming back in the afternoon, do, because Sunrise folks will be talking about their experience and their USD pipeline. After that, we have a talk about various integrations. It's going to be Roy and Andre will be showing ComfyUI integration. They're going to be showing OpenRV integration and a bunch of other things that happens in the past year. And at the end,